what we're talking about there is we're in more detail, we're talking about countries like Somalia, for example. We're talking about folks that are, believe it or not, people are still living in a subsistence way. I mean, a lot of these folks will be in Africa. There are folks in Latin America who are living very challenged lives. It's like Haiti, for example. The whole idea with Amish community is they're agrarians. You know, they're farmers, but they're carpenters, they're leathersmiths, they're metal workers, but they live a very simplified kind of life. You know, they go to school until the 8th grade. So we're not talking about inventing computers, but we're talking about a fantastic example of how to provide all of the basic needs for a person's, family's, community's, city's life. So the Amish are really, really good at that. Now, just as an insight here, I got a couple of banker friends from my young Kentucky high school days. They wound up going into banking, and they serve the Amish community. And an interesting insight that you'll probably never hear unless you're hearing this video or you know Amish folks is when you look at these folks. Let's say you go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is like ground zero for the Amish community. You might think, based upon the description of how the Amish live, that they are poor folk. Not for a second. My high school Kentucky banker friends, they have told me, said, look, it's very common for the Amish families to have 6-figure bank accounts and 7-figure bank accounts are a dime a dozen. And the reason why they have accumulated so much wealth is because they are essentially spending their life working, but they don't spend it on anything. I mean, the traditional Amish families, they don't have electricity in their house. They do have running water. When the sun goes down, they go to sleep. Okay, they don't have TVs, they don't have radios, they don't have cars. I mean, you've seen the horse and the buggies. I mean, it doesn't mean they won't ride in a car, because they will catch a ride with somebody else, you know, if the circumstances are right. But in terms of their day-to-day living style, they get themselves around with horses, a horse and buggy, bicycles. They're big bicycle riders. They walk within their communities. Like I say, they make their own clothes. You know, they're not buying the latest fashion. They're not going to carry a Louis Vuitton bag. That's not happening. Not happening in the Amish community. And they do their own haircuts, for example. And this is why they all have bowl-looking haircuts. I mean, it's a joke, but it's truth. And they all grow beards, so they're not spending money on razors and shaving cream. So it really is a simplified way of living. But on the other hand, they're hard workers. I mean, when the sun comes up, they're out working the fields. They're in their shops, whether it's a leather shop, wood shop, metal shop. They make things that people in America buy all across the country, like yard furniture, yard decorations. You know, they build houses. I mean, if you want to build a house and you find an Amish crew, or you go to Amish country, you can easily hire an Amish crew to build your house. I guarantee you, there are no builders better than the Amish builders in the country. And I have friends who did this. I know firsthand what I'm talking about. So essentially, they're hard workers. They provide all the basic needs of their family. They go up to the 8th grade in terms of religion. They are in terms of education. They are very religious. The Amish group they're very religious folks. There's no question about that. And but they don't spend their money on all of the paraphernalia and bits and pieces of modern American life. So essentially, they become savers. They're big savers, hard workers. And if we're trying to use this model to export it around the world, then it's fantastic, because let's just take Somalia, for example. You know, Google Somalia, pull up some videos. It's a heartbreak story. But just imagine if everyone in that community was working in a farming lifestyle like the Amish do. How quickly would they be able to eliminate their poverty? How quickly would they be able to save their money? How quickly would they be able to build up their economy? Well, the answer to those questions is it would be very fast. But the problem is many of these impoverished countries, they don't have the right role models. They they don't even have the resources to implement this basic style of living that we're talking about. We're just using the Amish as the iconic example, but it's the style of living that we're really after. And so we have to address those issues. And a UN 2.0 would be the perfect vehicle for doing that, because we could make sure that the UN 2.0 had, all of the resources that we're talking about to help others improve their lives. Remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to raise the standards of living of everybody on the planet. So basically what you just said, let's just use your number. It doesn't matter whether it's exactly right, exactly wrong. It doesn't matter, but just for conversation's sake, let's just say that 75% of the people on the planet do have a lifestyle that is at or above what one would find in the American Amish communities. Okay. Well, having said that, that means that 25% of the planet lives below that. And when we're talking about those 25% of the people on the planet that lives below it, we're talking about not just a little below, we're talking about way below. So this makes the job of the UN 2.0 that much easier, because it's not trying to solve everyone's problems on the planet. It's trying to take those 25% that are so far down the scale of comfort and livability and sustainability, trying to bring those people up to a higher level of living, and which would make sense. So once that goal was achieved, then we still have the police keeping characteristics of the international police force. Because as we've seen from Russia, there was no reason for Russia to invade the Ukraine. It was just stupidity. But there was no police force to stop that. And they didn't think that America would respond, because the rest of the world sees the Biden administration and the Democrats as a very weak administration. Biden's too old. He should be in the park with the squirrels, in retirement. Kamala Harris should be nowhere near Washington, D.C. She's here because she's a female, and that was the wrong reason to put somebody in the office. We need people who have skills. So the Democrats are out of tune economically. This is why we have this oil problem, big reason why we have this oil problem. The world sees the American administration as weak, and therefore discounts the likelihood of a military response. This same dynamic is also operating in the Asian world. It operated in Ukraine. But of course, we know that there was a response, and there was an appropriate response. But if the administration had been stronger and looked to be a more stronger, competent administration, then there's good reason to believe that even the Ukrainian situation would have never happened. So we have to be really careful about who we send to D.C. and the reasons why we send them here to manage the government, because it's not only directly impacting America, it's directly impacting the rest of the world. And if America wants to be the global superpower, which I believe we do because we get a huge number of benefit from this, then we must remember that the folks that we put in the White House and in the House and the Senate, they have to be there because first and foremost, they understand all of these power dynamics that operate around the country and around the world. And it's not about politics. It's about really deep understanding and making the decisions that are going to firmly advance the American interest. And the UN 2.0 is part of that. So just to finish up on this topic, if we institute UN 2.0, that means that the global police keeping responsibilities will be spread out amongst a larger group of nations. I mean, right now, America has really done more than its fair share in this regard since World War II. We'll call it since 1945. America has carried this burden and ball a very long ways, and we still do it. And we're not shying away from our responsibilities in that global arena. But if we institute this UN 2.0 and we bring more countries around the world to the police keeping table, and we eliminate this 25% of the global population that's really super poor, then what that is doing is that's bringing a much deeper and stronger a state of peace to the world. And so that's where the Quigley administration is on the issues we're talking about today.